President Biden is planning to release his top-line spending priorities in the coming week. This is on top of the planned $3 trillion economic package focused on infrastructure, clean energy, and education. That is expected in the coming weeks. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said yesterday the package will likely be paid for by reforms to the tax code. Joining me right now is former senior advisor to the Clintons, the CEO of MDC Partners, and Stagwell Group President and Managing Partner Mark Penn. Mark, thanks very much for being here. Well, Janet Yellen saying it's going to be paid for by reforming the tax code. That means higher taxes are coming, Mark. Your reaction to this economic agenda out of the Biden administration?
Well, we could go from having had in the last administration the biggest tax cut in history to the biggest tax increase in history. And one thing I can tell you, history has a habit of repeating itself. I think you saw, if you go back in, 92 to 94, the kind of taxation here that occurred that then resulted in the 94 congressional elections. Same thing that happened under Obama's term. The big stimulus bill then resulted in congressional elections that swung the other way. This is sort of almost a tax-geddon here in terms of the size of the taxes that he proposed in the campaign. And we'll see whether they're going to bring those to fore and maybe add a wealth tax. I think that's definitely going to scare both the public and perhaps the market.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Warren is plans for a wealth tax, but we haven't heard if that would be official. But let's go through some of these taxes, because the corporate rate they want to raise to 28% at least. Obama had it at 35%, by the way, but it is currently at 21%. Income tax for those families making $400,000. That means individuals making $200,000 or more will see a tax increase. The capital gains tax is something that I think is going to have a real big impact, because that's going from 21% currently to all the way close to 40%. And then there's a tax for pass-through companies. Small businesses are going to get hit with that one. What kind of an impact on the economy would you expect from all these tax increases?
Well, you're in the middle of a pandemic in which the leading economic spokespeople for the administration just said that we have a long way for recovery. So obviously a big tax increase is not a formula for economic recovery. And so it's a risky political move to do a tax increase now until the economy is on a stable and strong footing.
Yeah. Bob Nardelli, that I think what Mark is saying, that's one of the reasons that many people do not expect these tax increases to be retroactive to the beginning of 2021. But we don't know the answer. I mean, they could be. But even if they start and take effect in 2022, your reaction to all these tax increases that we're expecting from a business standpoint, Bob?
Yeah, I think Mark made some excellent points. And you will remember, Maria, that at one point under the Clinton administration, they were retroactive. So it has been done before, could be done now. And again, I think the comments from Yellen and Powell yesterday fly right in the face of what Mark just mentioned, the impact on the economy. Listen, we experienced, Maria, and you talked about it a lot, the benefit of lowering corporate tax. We saw a lot of onshoring, bringing jobs back so that we could be globally competitive. If that tax rate goes up, I can tell you, you will see a reverse of those things that happened. And we're already, as an earlier guest mentioned, we still aren't back where we needed to be on employment levels. So that's number one. Number two, on the small businesses, again, will have significant impact. People that are running these businesses, that report their incomes on a consolidated basis, will be impacted. So I think this is, with all the issues that this administration is facing right now, Mark, I wonder, you have been an advisor to these administrations. What, if you are, or what are you telling this administration about North Korea, immigration, taxes, gun control? I mean, they keep adding to the plate of controversy. What would you tell them to do? Slow down, stop, think about it?
Well, right now, the administration started out with a decent honeymoon. The public likes Joe Biden. I think they're waiting to really see more of him in the upcoming press conference that's been long delayed. I think that the administration should perhaps tread carefully here. The stimulus bill got passed. It's almost $2 trillion. Are they going to try to put on $2 to $4 trillion, the largest tax increase in history? The Democratic moderates may not go along with it. The border is raging. There was an embarrassing China meeting. This could be a short-lived honeymoon unless the administration kind of, I think, as you point out, slows down a bit and accumulates political capital here. It's being successful on the virus and the rollout of the vaccine, and that's probably helping it.
Yeah, but Mark, I mean, they're mislabeling everything, right? They've gotten away with this. They're calling all of these social programs COVID relief, and now they're calling, a climate change plan an infrastructure plan. So what does the polling say about all of these plans and how frankly, they're being mislabeled?
Well, I agree with you. That's why you can't exactly trust the polling, because of course people were for COVID relief, and as you know, infrastructure is very popular. And then the question is it really infrastructure? Well, when you go through the specifics, people are talking about roads and bridges, perhaps the internet. They're not talking really about climate change related spending, and they certainly don't want to see rising gasoline prices, which is another perhaps boomerang effect here in these policies. And on COVID relief, again, some people estimate that 90% or so really wasn't COVID relief. I think the administration got a pass on the first one. Every administration almost deserves getting its first piece of legislation through. But I think there are going to be some sharp questions as we go forward here.
Well, I mean, questions from who? I mean, who are the constituents? It seems like this agenda is being run by the extreme left, and most of us are hanging out in the middle. Even when you look at the crisis at the border, I mean, Customs and Border Protection released pictures yesterday of temporary facilities being used to process migrant children at the border. The release of the photos coming amid criticism of the White House and CBP for not giving the media access to the facilities, Mark. So you've got an agenda that looks real left, progressive, and then you've got a constituency, which, I don't know, is that where most people are? You tell us.
Well, as I said, most people are still giving the administration a bit of a honeymoon. And that honeymoon, based on the vaccine, is reasonable. It's higher levels than President Trump was able to get to, but it's on the administration is also on thin ice in the sense that the immigration issue is rising. It had really been reduced as one of the #1 issues, and it's really coming up, quite quickly. So I think, as I said, I don't think this administration has faced sharp questions so far. It's just getting to the point: will we have a real press conference where the president is asked tough questions about China, about taxes, about immigration, or will it be, softball questions? I think the public really wants to see the president stand up under full questioning on what he's doing and what his plan is. And I just don't know yet whether we're going to see that.
Well, it was certainly embarrassing to see the CCP school our State Department, that's for sure. The press conference is expected tomorrow night, Thursday night, as it will be the first press conference from President Biden in 2 months since he took office. Mark Penn, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks very much for your important insights this morning. We'll see you soon, Mark. Thank you.